Thank you, children. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 10, verses 40 through 42. Matthew records Jesus saying, "Whoever welcomes you welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet in the name of a prophet will receive a prophet's reward, and whoever welcomes a righteous person in the name of a righteous person will receive the reward of the righteous. And whoever gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones in the name of a disciple, truly I tell you, none of these will lose their reward." Here ends the reading. These are the words of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. As Ben has said, the good news today is that God, through Jesus Christ, has welcomed you and me. There is a order of worship where it is time for you and me to say hello. It's called the welcome. Many of you have gone to homes where we have knocked on the door, and as we look around, we see a mat there, do we not? It's called a welcome mat. And of course, that welcome mat there is to wipe your feet on. In the church, when we welcome, it is a social event, but it's more than a social event. When we welcome one another at the church, what we mean is this: there is a place for you here. There is a place made for you here. God, through Christ, has made a place for you here in relationship with God, in service to God, neighbor, and self. Our welcome doesn't come from our socialism, our social way of life. Our welcome comes from our theological stance in life. When you and I say welcome, what we mean is this: God, through Christ, has made a place for you. If you and I go to church and you and I can't find our place, there's something gone awry. If you and I go to a church and we don't feel welcomed, something has gone awry. In relationship to God and Christ, all of us, every one of us, has been given a place. That's what it means to welcome. Now, I doubt that we experience that when we come to each other's house. If you come to the parsonage and I say welcome, don't think that one of those bedrooms are yours. Don't think that you can get in my refrigerator and get whatever kind of food you want. Don't make yourself too comfortable, because I'm expecting you to leave. But in our relationship with God through Christ, that is not so. We are expected to become the person we were created to be. Yet we're called to do this in a world where we will find a lot of conflict and push against it. All of my life, I have tried to be me. My mother, when I was talking to her this week, I said, "You know, Mom, I don't know how it's going to be the 28th of June. I don't know how the worship service is going to be." And you know what my mom said to me? She said, "Just be yourself. Don't be anything else. That's why God has called you. Be you. Don't be anyone else." I read a Jewish rabbi who said that when you and I come before the Almighty will not say to you and me, "Why weren't you more like Abraham? Why weren't you more like Isaac? Why weren't you more like Jacob?" God will say to you and me, why weren't you more like you? Brothers and sisters, no one has your fingerprints. No one has your voice print. No one is like you. I have learned what a podcast is. I thought a pod was something that a frog sat on. That's a lily pad, isn't it? I thought it was a pod. And I have learned that there are thousands of podcasts. And I just so happened to come across Mr. Rogers' podcast. It was entitled, Searching for Mr. Rogers. The announcer and those who work with Mr. Rogers are talking about Mr. Rogers. It was a while before I learned that Mr. Rogers was a Presbyterian minister. But he never mentioned the word God. He mentioned these words. You are accepted just like you are. I like you just as you are. You see, in the Presbyterian Church, those words have a name. It's a doctrine. It's a belief. When you say to someone, I like you just as you are, that word is grace. Grace. And that is why we are enabled to welcome one another as we are, and then to transform into the being that God has called us to be. Jesus called his disciples to follow him and said to them, this isn't going to be as easy as what it may seem. I don't know about you, brothers and sisters, but I've had a lot of people not want me to be Randall. I've experienced that in school. I've experienced that in my family. I've experienced that in work. I've experienced that when I am me, I can be a threat to people. And when you and I are ourselves and we are a threat to one another, that's something that you and I are not intending to happen. That's not happening on our end. That's happening on the other person's end and what they're receiving and what they're perceiving. But Jesus says to his disciples, I want you to go out and I want you to do what I have been doing. Healing the sick, befriending the lonely, raising the dead, showing them what God is like. But know that there will be those who will try and stifle you and will try and get you not to do it. Because you will be a threat. Because you'll be a threat. My dad used to say about me that I had more mouth than a baboon does butt. And then I saw The Lion King. And I was so happy to find out that the baboon in The Lion King was the priest. Oh, sometimes us not having a filter can get us in trouble. Saying what's on our mind can really get us in trouble. But you and I are the only one who has the tongue that can speak the words when Jesus tells us to speak. There are people in our lives who listen to our words, who have faith and trust in us, who believe that what we say is so. And we are to be careful. Jesus said, if you will welcome people, here's what to expect. If you welcome a prophet, expect to receive what a prophet usually gets. If you welcome a righteous person who believes in justice and you make a place for them, expect to get what a righteous person gets for promoting justice. You see, brothers and sisters, that's our gift. If I receive a righteous person who believes in justice for those who are profiting from injustice, they're not going to welcome me. If I respect a prophet who speaks the words of the Lord, and they see that I welcome that and I acknowledge that, for those who do not, they shall not welcome me. And what does Jesus say about that? Rejoice. Rejoice, Jesus says, because your reward is great in heaven. And you know what I say to that? Well, what about now, Jesus? You know, what about now? I mean, I'm in the here and now. Are you saying that before I actually experience what I have lived out to be, that I've got to wait till I get to heaven to get my reward? You mean I can't have it here? You and I have a very difficult task these days, because nothing is going to be like how it used to be. Never will be. It's the new normal. Video online will continue for the rest of our lives. For we are touching people, brothers and sisters, that we've never touched before. We are called to speak a stained glass language without it sounding stained glass. Online are cultures that you and I are having to learn about, that's different from you and me and how we were raised. Here's what I read. People are not going to go to church when you have something, because they may have something else to do. And I'm thinking, well, they'll split hell wide open. And someone said, wrong attitude, wrong attitude. Therefore, the church is to have on its website videos, Bible studies, things that people need, that when they are able to connect to it, it will be there for them. You don't know how many people said to me, we worshiped with you this past week. Oh, I said, well, that's good. I said, 11 o'clock's. They said, no, we didn't worship with you at 11 o'clock. When did you worship? They said, 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, 3 o'clock in the morning? They said, yeah, I couldn't sleep. So I needed to hear a word from the Lord. And I knew you were on. Brothers and sisters, people aren't here for us. We're here for the other. That's the new normal. Of course, it's always been that way. But I think now it's become more in focus. Welcome, brothers and sisters. Welcome back. It's been a long time since I've seen you. I've missed you. It's been good to hear your voice. Now I send you out as a sheep in the midst of wolves, and I give you a dangerous message. Welcome one another as God has welcomed you. And to know what may happen to you if you do. But to remember the words of Jesus. Blessed are you if you welcome someone that the world has not welcomed. For it's the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.